You're listening to this week's episode of the Vacation Rental Business in Today's World podcast. You're about to start transforming your business and life with the information found here. We interview some of the greatest and most influential minds in the vacation short-term rental industry and supporting businesses. The information found here is a combination of brain science, transformational thinking, safety and loss prevention, and vacation short-term rental knowledge and experiences, all rolled into one to help you and your business to achieve levels you never thought possible. I am glad you are here, and now please welcome your host, Eric Thibodeau.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Safer VRS podcast. I'm Eric Thibodeau. I'm your host, and today I wanted to continue the topic that we had begun, a three-part series. This one, it was about awareness, understanding, and knowing. So a couple of weeks ago, we did awareness, and today we're going to cover understanding. But just so we back up and just recap awareness. So everything starts with awareness. Go back and take a listen to the podcast from 2 weeks ago. Everything starts with awareness. We can't make any changes. We can't understand things in our lives. We can't really do anything until we are now aware of this topic, this issue, this need, this desire in our life or our business. So awareness is really everything. Now we have awareness. We're becoming aware of, in this particular conversation, safety in our vacation rental business. And I think that's really key. Having awareness, as we talked about, is the first step. So are you aware of safety and how you're managing safety in your vacation rental business? And so if not, then that's a great place to start. But for those who are aware that there's a need and a desire for this in their business, because safety really is, I call it, it's like a safeguard for your business. You are safeguarding your revenue. So when we take a look at understanding, which is the next part, it's really interesting. So let's look at what understanding is and the definition of understanding. So understanding is to perceive the intended meaning of something. It could be understanding, I'm interpreting, or the view of something in a particular way. However, the definition I like the best is to realize something you have been told. You are aware, and now you are understanding. And so really, what is understanding? We're using these words of awareness, understanding, and knowing. So I like to tell a little story about this to help get this apart, distinguish it, and so you can tell the different terms apart. So I've been an EMT. I was an EMT for many years. And if we talk about the subject of broken bones, as an EMT, as a person, Eric Thibodeau, I am aware about broken bones. I'm aware about how bones could be broken, all the different ways about it, right? I'm aware of how it could happen. I'm aware that slip, trips, and falls in my vacation rental could cause that in my life. I'm aware of what a broken bone is. And then as an EMT, I knew almost all the bones in the body. I understood, had an understanding of what a broken bone was, compound fracture, hairline fracture, not necessarily as a doctor. However, when I responded to take care of people who were in some type of acute trauma or an accident, I understood, how to identify what a broken bone looked like and talk to the patient about it. So I had an understanding. If we go back to the definition, it's something I realized that I've been told. So, and I think that's really key. I've been told about broken bones. I understand it. So that's the second term, understanding. That's where we are today. What have we been told? The third part, just so we know, is knowing. And we're going to cover that next week. However, knowing is much different. I do not know what a broken bone is, and I'm knocking on wood about that. I have not had a broken bone in my body. I've taken care of many people at scenes and emergency situations who have had broken bones. However, I don't really know what a broken bone is like. Don't want to know exactly. However, I don't know. I haven't had that experience of having a broken bone. I've had, and like I said, I understand. I've taken care of people. I'm aware of how it happened, but I don't really know. And when we look in life, what we understand is a lot different than what we know. And I think when we start to look at things, we really don't know as much as we think we know. And certainly we certainly could. And even if you know, for example, I'm a safety professional. I know safety. I've applied it in many parts of the world in many situations. While I know it, I'm always learning more. There could always be more to know. And so when we say, remember, our words are powerful. When I say I understand, I'm aware about broken bones and I understand broken bones, I can't say that I know about broken bones because I haven't experienced it. Now, if you've had a broken bone, you know, and you can explain and you can remember how it felt. And that's really important. And why is that important as we go through some of these discussions? So a couple of terms as we go through here: content and context. So content is what we watch, we read, or we learn. We understand. This is understanding, right? I've been told about broken bones. I've been told about safety. I have content, however, does not change people, right? Context changes people and is what we need to work towards. So content is this information, right? I know that I need to have a fire extinguisher in my vacation room. I know it needs to be functioning. I know it needs to be checked. That's just the understanding. Knowing is that real feeling of, I actually purchased one. I put it there. I know where it's at. I check it. I maintain it. So knowing is, and maybe even I've had to use it. Hopefully I've used it in training and I know how to use it. That's why it's really important. There's a difference between understanding how to swim and actually swimming. If I read a book about swimming and I'm the best book reader and I can explain everything to you about swimming, I understand it. However, I may not know it until I get into the water and I begin to swim, take the strokes, take the breath, kick my feet. That's really knowing. That's context right there. Big difference between content and context. Context changes people. And so as we look in our businesses and we understand about safety, but do we really have the context? Are we moving towards knowing? And let's be honest, everyone, we can't know everything. However, today, let's define and figure out where we're at in taking a look at, are we understanding where we're at in safety? I found this really great quote from James Schlesinger, who was back in the Carter administration. I believe at the time he was speaking about oil and the economy and probably, hey, maybe it applies today considering everything that's happening in 2022 with oil prices and everything else. He talked about complacency and panic. We address, basically as Americans or as people, we're in one of these two ways. We're either complacent or we're in a panic. And so let's talk about that in a safety perspective so we can understand. Really, a complacency. Complacency is about, are we really taking the positive proactive actions to address safety and loss prevention issues in our properties, in our property management, in our business? And if we're not, then we're in a panic because something's happened. Someone was injured. There's a fire. There's some loss, right? You can probably go back and look at my LinkedIn post from, maybe almost 3 weeks ago. I was scrambling because we had a hot water heater break at one of our properties and flood the property. No one was injured. And there is a great example, right? I mentioned it in there. I had not inspected the hot water tank. I was complacent. And then now I'm in a panic. So here's from someone who was aware, who was understanding, and who knows. But the real question is, did I really know? I may have understood. I was complacent. So that's a great example of where, hey, this content, I understand, but the context is really where people change. So now I'm hyper vigilant about hot water tanks and I want to go about and replace them. In my other properties, I want to inspect them. But do we really need to have that experience? Do we have to have the experience of having a loss? in our business. This is where content really, we said content doesn't change people. We can understand everything about what we're supposed to do, but until we actually get engaged and we move from understanding to knowing, context changes people, and it's what we need to work towards. Interact with people to get into their heads to understand their need and what motivates them. Context is about your thinking and how you're feeling, and it's a higher level of looking at a situation. So I've said a lot here, and some of it may not be exactly clear, and maybe go back and look at it again. However, when we use the words and say, I understand the situation, more than likely, we're apt to say, yes, I know about that. And you should really question and say, do I really know about that? Have I experienced that loss? Like Eric talked about with the hot water heater, have I experienced that loss? Have I had a broken bone? Do I really know what it feels like? And sometimes we don't want to have that level of knowing. So we look at it from understanding of what safety and loss prevention is in our business, in our vacation rental industry. And we talk about, am I being complacent or am I panicking? Let's be in the middle. Let's be proactive. Let's not be like the typical person who is complacent. And then at some point, could be the next moment, it could be a few years, maybe never, they're in a panic because of some situation. So really the message here today is understanding is the second part on our journey of we're being aware, we're understanding. The third part is actually knowing. And let's know from a proactive stance, not a reactive stance, not that panic stance. Like, I know what a broken bone is because I've had a broken bone. I know what a loss is because I've had a fire in my property or I've had an injury in my property. Let's be more towards I'm understanding and I'm knowing and I'm taking the action without necessarily having to go through the negative experience. So we'll talk a little bit about knowing more next week. And as you move through, right, awareness is a bigger topic, right? Because nothing starts without it. The next part is really understanding, like we talked about today. And that's just starting to move towards I'm taking information that someone's told me and I need to use it. And we could really go into why from a subconscious level in our mind about why that's happening and not happening. And really what we want to do is to move more towards knowing. Knowing is a higher level of frequency in our mind and our body, and that we're moving in that direction, in which we're going to talk more about next week. This all plays into not only just our business, but in our life. Are we aware? Are we understanding the situation? More than likely, someone's told us about it. And do we know, which is the third step? So I appreciate you listening today. Please go out and check me out on safervrs.com. I have a Facebook group and my business page. They're called Vacation Rental Safety. And I talk a lot more about than just, things in vacation rental safety. We can talk about fire extinguishers and we can talk about smoke detection and we can talk about pool safety. However, that's been around for a long time. The awareness is there in the industry. People are becoming aware. They understand sometimes, but they don't know. And it's not in your identity as a vacation rental owner or manager to adopt safety. Safety, things in our identity were developed when we were really young or had some type of issue, right? Like some people say, well, I had this safety incident and therefore I was converted and I really like and support safety. I'm doing this because of this. So we went from complacency to panic. We don't have to be that way. We don't have to sustain that loss. We don't have to have that impact in our business. Let's become aware. Let's understand and move to a higher level of frequency of knowing, which we're going to talk about next week. I hope to hear from you. Join me in Facebook group and check out safervrs.com and let me know how I can help you in any of my programs or information or just have a chat. I appreciate you very much. Look forward to hearing from you and have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Safer VR's podcast with Eric Thibodeau. If you enjoy this, I would love you to join my Facebook group, The Safer Vacation Rentals, for more of the same. You can also join our email list at www.safervrs.com.